Aloha, this is Samana, and this is my 28th podcast. And it's January 2020. We are going to have a lovely full moon on the 10th in Cancer, 20 degrees. So that is for this month of January. Basically, Cancer is all about the home and good food and family and community and what nurturing means to you, how we nurture ourselves and others. And that's what the full moon's going to light up for all of us. So enjoy that. And I personally am going to be in a silent retreat during that moon, so I look forward to it. I decided to call this 28th podcast Going Home because I'm actually sitting in Maui right now at my best friend Jojo's house, listening to the ocean in the background. And I was wondering, what am I going to do this podcast on? So I was at the airport waiting to board my flight from Austin back to Maui. I found myself filled with so many feelings and thoughts. I haven't been back to this island that I've been on for 30 years and called home for 4.5 years. I moved to Texas that long ago, and it just wasn't time to come back. So I started thinking, what is this idea of home and what that means on so many levels to everybody? We have a different sense of it and a similar sense of it. So I found it a worthy topic to contemplate and discuss. The question of how does a place become our home? What are the qualities and what's the type of environment that inspires such an honorable feeling to claim as a place as home? We're all so very complex from how we were raised, from different cultures, the foods, the geographic surroundings. And some people are born and raised and die in the same place. They never leave anywhere. And others, the first chance they can walk or have their own source of income, they bail and rarely go back. You hear about the term of the prodigal son, how the story where you need to leave, or they call it the hero's journey. That's another Joseph Campbell reference, where you have to leave a place that's familiar, that's known, that's safe, and go out into the world to discover who you are. We show up differently with different people and new circumstances. It creates us, it cultivates us to bring out from within parts of ourselves we never knew. And in this prodigal son, this hero's journey to go out and explore and find who we are, not in reference to how our family sees us or our friends have seen us or I know how you are. None of those things. Like, who are we? When I lived in Maui in the day and I had so much responsibility, I traveled a lot, and I would go by myself to Thailand and India and China and different places because I needed to see who Samana was without Spaluna or without being Miley's mom. And I was always in this quest to figure out who I am, just me in the moment when I meet someone and how I show up. So I am a big proponent of those high school, college, pre-college, like in your teens and your 20s, go travel. If you're older and you've never been anywhere, go travel, like make that happen and discover parts of yourself that have been waiting to be decoded and released. So, I was blessed talking about home. During the time of running my school, I had the massage and esthetician school for years, and I'd often have students come from the mainland or from other countries and do the 4-month program or the 7-month program. And many times they had never left home before. And coming to an island and a place where there was nothing familiar was quite courageous. I would often see a similar process unfolding in their experiences. Initially, they would be constantly on the phones talking to their family or their best friends from where they came from. Many of them feeling sad and lonely and homesick, and at times they would wonder, did they make the right choice? I've had students privately come to me in tears. I'm just too homesick. I need to go home. I don't think I could do this. And I would say, just wait a little longer. And I'd always encourage them gently that when you are someplace new, to have a support system, like start going to lunch with one of the students, start to go to the beach that's here with somebody and strike up a conversation. How they'd always, I would encourage them to have moments of checking in and seeing how they can find ground here and support here in this new environment. Even when you're traveling and you're backpacking and you're all alone, to just meet a fellow traveler and you connect, like nobody even discusses what they do for a living or anything. It's just like who you are in that moment. Let's go for a walk. Let's go have something to drink, and you just talk about the moment. That is what's beautiful. So when I would encourage those students to help as a remedy for homesickness, to try to really see what's happening in this new world and to start to appreciate it instead of comparing what isn't here, that this helps with that, this sense of home. So, by gaining yourself as your greatest resource of comfort and support, you learn to do that by traveling, by going to new places. Because although we want a connection and community and we want to connect with new people, ultimately it is about having ourselves as that foundation, as that no matter what, I'm not leaving me. I'm here for this whole process. When I'm scared, know that I'm scared. I remember when I took my daughter to Cordon Bleu in Paris, and this was planned for many months, and she was going to be there for a year, and she was 20 years old, and she's all, I'm down, yes, this is great. She was born and raised on the island. And I remember going there to help her get set up before she started school. And out of nowhere, all this courage that she had known, in that moment, she's like, I don't want to do this. I changed my mind. She was too afraid. And I'm like, this is like 50 grand later. Like, so much has been planned. This has been months of planning and scheduling. And she was about to start in a few days, like in the next 5 days. And so I thought right away, there was no talking her into it to make her feel better. She just needed to connect with something familiar. So what I did was, and I was very impressed with myself because technology is not my thing, is I actually found this app that you download that can help you get American stations. So it kind of it gave me a IP address for New York City. And so we started watching some of her shows. So I went and I got pasta, I got us a bottle of wine. We were staying at our little Airbnb. And I'm like, we're just going to stop looking for furniture and thinking ahead. This was a day that her fear was too great. So you needed to just like go in deep and do what's familiar. So we watched movies she liked. She got to see her Pretty Little Liars and whatever shows she liked at the time that made her feel happy and home. And I made her pasta. We're Italian. We had our little wine. And we were not in Paris any longer. This is how you find home. This is how you connect. You just make it happen wherever you're at. And the next day she woke up and I said, are we ready to do this? And because if she wasn't, I'd do another day of that. And she was ready. So we went out and then it became exciting. Let's find a new table and chairs. Let's find some new little coffee cups and whatever, plates. And we got to shop all over Paris and haul this stuff on the metro. And it was a lot of fun. But she needed, as we sometimes need, she needed to just tap into what was familiar and go back to that because the fear was too great, so that that self-compassion, that understanding when not to push ourselves. We can be brave, but we have to seize the moment of when we're brave and give ourselves what's familiar and necessary before we could take the next step. Often I've seen in the day, I used to do a lot of babysitting, and I found that children at the age of 4, that they tend to kind of go back into the mother's skin where they just need a lot of attention and a lot of reassurance, because the phenomena as at 5, and even in numerology as change and freedom and all of that, is they're about to take a leap of independence. So it's interesting that they needed to go in to go out. So they needed to cling to the mother like one last time before they broke out and figured out who they were. So it is a natural human process that we have to sometimes just revert back to safety before we could take that next leap of faith. But we can do it. We just need to honor where we're at before we do it. So, as humans, when we're raised with a close-knit family, it's often hard to trust others outside of our known tribe. And when encouraged to have lunch next door with someone that you just met or with one of the students instead of calling home or any of those things, were ways of helping these students, or any of you college students out there listening to this, to learn how to start to integrate and be more present where you're at. So slowly feeling less inclined to call home with what's familiar and to speak to someone in front of you and be available to show up, to be here and now with this new chosen family. Traveling beyond what we've known your whole life to a new environment allows this initiation of what the heart is born to know. We can bond with any human on the planet, be it race, color, gender, political, religious beliefs or associations, and find a connection with these foreign aliens that potentially can be as significant as our blood relations, as my friend that I grew up with my whole life. It's just utilizing the capacity of the human heart to find that connection. Being on Maui for the 30 years, I moved here when I was 21 with a suitcase and a friend, and having no family for so long, I was blessed with experiencing this capacity to love and bond with the most unexpected of people. Traveling all these years since my 20s allowed for that same opportunity. Is like, the color of their skin, the way they speak, their accents, what they've known their whole life, that in that moment, over chai, over a cup of tea, you can have like the greatest unity, the greatest bonding experience ever. Like, I would love all of you to allow yourself that wonderful freedom to know that you can find home anywhere. These transformations occur and we gain insights that help us evolve from different inputs into new inputs, and it actually stimulates different areas. As I always remind you, cultivating new neural pathways in our brain, it happens and is accomplished by new stimuli, new interactions, not the same thing. How we show up, how we become highly adaptable in our natural state. When we feel safe enough to drop what is known and familiar and trust in ourselves enough to know we are our greatest foundation and assets. Learning how to care for oneself by acknowledging these fears, and when we need comforting, learning the tools on how to bring that comfort to ourselves. This is liberating. This brings a freedom and opens up a world that you can go anywhere, that your dependency is on yourself because you have learned the tools of how to bring in self-care and nurturing, and you've learned the tools of how to connect with a stranger and turn it from a stranger to someone that is a lifelong friend. I've traveled so many foreign countries, and there are times that I will be somewhere and I'm listening and I hear Americans talking about how they can't find a McDonald's, or they don't like the food here, or they don't understand what people are saying, and they have these squawky complaints. And I just quietly sit there and I send them a blessing. When I see someone having a hard time, I just actually say blessings to them, and I just see this, rainbow lights around them, what I know is that in that complaining, an adult's way of crying is complaining is an adult's way of crying. So when they're complaining, they're afraid. And they're afraid because they don't have anything familiar around them. Everything is unknown. I praise them for being bold to take a trip like this. And it's interesting because I guarantee that by the time they get home and they're talking to their family and friends and they're back in their comfortable little world, that they will find something they benefited from. Even if the whole time all they did was complain about how much nothing is like home, they will find something. So good for them for trying and trying again. I want to speak a little more about this feeling of what home is. I am going into a silent retreat tomorrow, and I have not done one with my Sangha in 5 years. 5 years ago, I got out in January 2015, and it was the last time I've done a formal retreat. So I've been with this small group of beautiful meditators for so many times. I've done over 30 of these retreats through the years. And to be with humans, I have found with my past, I wasn't so trusting. And when I discovered Vipassana and this ability to bond in silence with a total stranger was more intimate and more heart-inspiring to me than to sit and talk about what someone does for a living and what they drive and so many things. So to sit with these fellow meditators while we are suffering with our pains in our body because we have sat for so many hours still, or we're walking slowly, or the pains in our mind because the mind is relentless and wants to go in certain areas and will just fixate on it and cause us to suffer. And suddenly, out of nowhere, through sheer exhaustion of trying to manipulate a technique, the mind will shift and the perspective changes. And the ego gives up for that moment. And it's so beautiful. And we feel this peace and this connection, and we feel this feeling of pure presence. And it feels like we never have to move again, like we could sit there and just feel the wind on our face or hear the sounds around us. And it's like landing in your body for the first time. This is a feeling of home. This is a feeling of home for me. It's an experience that nothing has to be changed or done. There's nothing more important to do in that moment than to just sit and breathe. It's the sense of home and love of how many of us have been so in love with a partner, or so in love with a family member, or our best friend, or our child, or our friend, or our pet. And we're just sitting with them and holding their hand or their paw or something. And we just want that moment to last forever. I just want to be here. New love. I just want to be in love forever. There's nothing better on the planet. That's a sense of being home. All of these are different examples of this common thread that we share. When we are present and we're where we are at, when we are curious and ask, what is this moment? And breathe it in fully. That cleansing breath. Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, she clicked her ruby slippers while repeating, "There's no place like home, there's no place like home," until she opened her eyes and realized she never left. What is home? Coming back to Mother Maui for me, where my current home is in Austin. I had a friend buy me a ticket a year and 2 years ago, and I was booked to come back here, and I absolutely wasn't ready at the time. I had anxiety from the time the ticket was purchased. For 2 nights I couldn't sleep, and both times I had to tell her, "I so appreciate it, but I'm not ready." And I realized for myself it's because I like this new world of where I'm living. I like the new stimulations. It helps me grow. I'm a fuller human being. And as much as Maui is so deeply my heart and my home, and my friends are here and they are my chosen family, I need to continue growing and helping the planet and expanding. I doubt I would have ever done a podcast in Maui. I doubt I would have ever been teaching the workshops I taught or met my friend David and doing our relationship workshops. And all of that matters so much to me. My life coaching is way more effective than it's ever been because I am a mainlander and an island girl combined, and I am of benefit to a greater market because of it. So looking for yourselves, is it time to find a new sense of home? Is it time to stimulate new parts of yourself, have new engaging friendships and interactions, new jobs, new environments where you have to have yourself as that resource to go in and see who's here, who's showing up, what is it I'm going to accomplish now? I've never had to do this before. Anyways, so I have found, being back on Maui, my second day now after being in the ocean, that my home is in my heart, that in my skin, in my body. Anyone I spend time with, wherever I'm at, home is a place of spaciousness, of acceptance, of breath, of movement, of being free and fully owning where I am in this moment. It doesn't matter if it's Kula or Maui or Austin or India. When I lived in Venice Beach in the 80s, I knew so many of the homeless people that lived near the boardwalk because I'd often walk the boardwalk at 2, 3 in the morning, and I was never afraid. I'd sit and talk in the day or in the evenings and just have these beautiful conversations with these beings. And back then, I remember in my 20s, there was this thought of mine, how did this happen? How did they become homeless? Speaking of this topic of home. And I wondered, what was the moment in their life that turned them from society, from work, from a house, from what was known, their family and friends, to living in this minimal existence where the conditions could be quite harsh, where it was about food and shelter. So decades ago, I had a fear of that. Could this happen to me? And now here I am, mature in my 50s, and driving through Austin, you see many homeless people in different areas. They have their little regular places. When that triple-digit weather gets there, there's this one place as I'm driving home down South First where you see a group of them that live under this shaded tree that helps to protect them. And when I see them when the light is red, and I'll just glance at them and kind of scan the energy, and they're always big smiles and joyous and laughing, and you know that they just figure it out together. But they have community, and their sense of home is not as rigid. Their sense of home is more fluid. And it's more, let's figure this out together with this new stranger that you're instantly bonded with because you have a challenge together. You have a common challenge. So I'm not saying that all homeless people are joyous, yet I am saying that the sense of home is really an internal process of owning and claiming. And they've shown me a lot. Humans on this planet show me so much. And when we take the time to really notice how others respond to life, what their safety, what their sense of safety is, what home is, how they connect, how they feel family, or do they want to keep it private? That gives us so many opportunities to learn different ways of life. So, I'm definitely grateful for the different interactions that I find constantly throughout my life, that I don't have judgments about where anyone comes from or what their beliefs are or their social status or political views. I have very certain political views, and when I talk to others that have opposing views, I sit there with an open mind. I'm curious why they believe that. I'm curious why they believe that's important, not what they believe. Do you hear me? It's taking that meditation mind of curiosity. And my goal is to connect with human beings on the deepest possible level in the shortest amount of time that we have is connection. So when I hear someone has totally polarized views than me, I'm curious, what makes that so for you? Well, how does that make you feel safe, or how does that empower you? And I'm curious to learn more about them. Why? Not what their view is, but why their view is that way. And that's how we can open up and drop our judgments and drop our separateness and our loneliness so that we can gain our tribe, our world tribe. So, what else do we have? We are humans with many shared commonalities and values. Some of us are blessed and have found peace and gratitude with what we have in this moment, and others struggle for this ego reaching of there's always something beyond this moment that matters more. And I'm not saying it's not important, as my last podcast, what were the intentions for this new year and this new decade. We need to have a plan, yet have a plan and keep it spacious, keep it loose, because life may want to get involved and send you on a course that is way more fulfilling and richer and heart expanding. So, bringing this 28th podcast in about contemplating what is home and who is home for you. So, some people feel that home is being with their partner. When I'm with my partner, I can just lie there and be quiet and just feel his skin. And again, it's that feeling there's nothing else to do. That is a sense of home for me. And I believe I could feel that depth because I have learned that my being and body and mind is a sense of home. So there are times that a person, a child, a pet is home for you, and to look to see why that is. What about that person or that pet? What do you love about them? I've said it many times, my little dog Sabai, how when I'm lying on my bed and watching TV or writing something, and she is just right around at my hip to the left, and that's her position, and she leans into me just enough pressure where her little 15-pound body is leaning into me. That I just take a moment and stop what I'm watching or what I'm writing, and I just breathe that in because that's home, that connection, that matters to her, that's her comfort spot, that she needs to lean in and touch me. And it's so beautiful. So we see how we all make choices, how we move around, how we move from, how we adapt, how we accept. And when we don't do that, then we suffer. And we suffer due to our expectations or our directing, our controlling what something needs to be in this moment, how our life needs to be, how this person needs to be, how this moment needs to be. Where if we keep our mind open and agile and we ask, what is this moment? Why is this important for that person to believe that? We'll have many more fulfilling moments. This life will be so much richer. Remember when you feel tight inside, it actually feels contracted. In the days when I used to control, when I wasn't so cultivated in my spiritual practice, I'd actually feel my stomach contract, and I'd have to take a deep sigh, that breath of Ha, that cleansing breath, and I'd have to give expansion to it so that I could continue breathing and not pass out. It's like I need to know when I'm holding on, and I need to know when I believe life is a certain way versus questioning what is this moment. This moment when we're present is home. I'm looking forward to my next podcast to share with you after my silent retreat, my week of sitting with God, is how I always say, and all of these wonderful beings, and being silent and bonding on the most precious levels, and being home more than ever with all this lusciousness of this beautiful island. So, for all of my wonderful listeners, thank you for your curiosity and your dedication, and for sharing my podcasts when they're helpful for someone else. And may this new year offer opportunities of growth. We have 2 workshops coming up. The first is my famous transformational 30-day cleanse, detox, and spiritual reboot. That's going to be in South Austin on Thursday nights, February 13th, 20th, 27th, and March 5th from 6:30 to 9. I will have a nice cleansing soup for us, and that's $300 a person, or join with a friend. That's 2 for $500. I could do that same cleanse over 30 days, one-on-one, on a virtual 2-hour for 4 weeks, and that is $500 when you do it one-on-one, and we could cater it to whatever life coaching you want, but we will get into physical, mental, and emotional detox and give you tools for that. And I have a certification for healthcare professionals if you need more counseling of how to strengthen areas for your clients. And my other workshop with David Garrison is the Be a Relationship Architect for singles and couples, and that is going to be March 21st to 22nd, 10 to 5. That's a Saturday and Sunday. That one also is $300 or 2 for $500. And remember, if you are not in Austin, I do rooms on booking.com, and if you contact me directly, I will give you a discount for that weekend. And you could reach me, Samana, SAMANA, at spaluna.com, or text me, 808-283-7587. I will not answer you this week while I'm in my retreat. May you all have your own retreat. May you all feel what home is to you, and blessings to all. Enjoy that lovely full moon.